Are you watching closely? Coming close. Closer. At that time, the patent laws regulating intellectual property had been understood to cover only inventions or discoveries in the field of inanimate nature. And in Diamond v. Chuck Bronte, the Supreme Court had concluded in a matter involving a novel bacteria that the plaintiff's claim is not to a hitherto unknown or natural phenomenon, but to a non-naturally occurring manufacture or composition of matter, a product of human ingenuity having a distinctive name, character, and use. And after the outbreak of the COVID pandemic, at least 8 FOIA requests were submitted for such records by organizations including Science Magazine, Judicial Watch, and the Heritage Foundation. The indictment says, but did you see it? Let's try again. Are you watching closely? Coming close. Closer. The more you think you see, the easier it will be to fool you. Similarly, in 2013, the Supreme Court had held that a naturally occurring DNA segment is a product of nature and not patent eligible merely because it has been isolated, but that cDNA is patent eligible because it is not naturally occurring. And now, according to news sources at Politico, Dr. Morans, who had worked for NIAID, has now been indicted on obstruction of justice and conspiracy charges for allegedly concealing federal records about research into viruses like the one that caused the COVID pandemic. In 2021, the CDC had determined that both SARS-CoV and SARS-CoV-2 were chimeric viruses, which by nature could only come from a lab. And so why would Dr. Morans, working for the NIAID, know anything about that? However, according to the Department of Justice, he is charged with conspiracy against the United States, destruction, alteration, or falsification of records in federal investigations, concealment, removal, or mutilation of records, and aiding and abetting. Did you see it yet? Let's try again. Are you watching closely? Coming close. Closer. Remember, the more you think you see, the easier it will be to fool you. What is aiding and abetting? A principal in the second degree is not the perpetrator, not the one actually performing the predicate offense or crime, but someone who is merely present, aiding and abetting the act done, or keeping watch or guard at some convenient distance for a principal actor. And Dr. Morans has been charged with aiding and abetting. But aiding and abetting who? Under the law, to be actionable, the offender must only have or create an understanding that he can influence matters in connection with an official duty. Whether he is capable of actually affecting such an act is entirely irrelevant. The laws in conspiracy only look to the outward appearance of that actor that he is presenting to the public and asking the question whether or not he looks like he is in charge. Mere acquiescence or silence or failure of an officer to perform a duty does not make one a participant in a conspiracy unless he acts or fails to act with the knowledge, the purpose, the true purpose of the conspiracy and with the view of protecting and aiding it. Actual malice exists when the defendant knowingly commits misconduct, not negligently, or when engaged in action with reckless disregard. Bad faith is not just intentional conduct, but intent to engage in conduct for an impermissible reason, willful noncompliance, or even willful ignorance of the facts. Did you see it? Let's try again. Are you watching closely? Come now in closer. Closer. Remember that the more you think you see, the easier it will be to fool you. Dr. Morins also stands charged with concealment. What is concealment? One might reasonably ask. The doctrine of fraudulent concealment does not come into play, whatever the lengths to which a defendant has gone to conceal wrongs if a plaintiff is on notice of a potential claim. And a key aspect of a plaintiff's case alleging fraudulent concealment is therefore proof that the plaintiff was not previously on notice of the claim he now brings. Statutes of limitations. In the first type, the most common, the fraud goes undiscovered even though the defendant, after commission of the wrong, does nothing to conceal it, self-concealing, and the plaintiff has diligently inquired into its circumstance. In the second type of fraud, however, the fraud goes undiscovered because the defendant has taken positive steps after the commission of the fraud to keep it concealed. In the former case, concealment is established by the very nature of the act. In the latter case, additional acts of concealment are required to trigger the tolling doctrine. Did you see it yet? Let's try again. Are you watching closely? Coming close. Closer. Remember, the more you see, the easier it will be to fool you. Here, notice to comply with due process requirements must set forth the alleged misconduct with particularity, while the particularity with which alleged misconduct must be described varies with the facts and circumstances of the individual case. Due process notice contemplates specifications of acts or patterns of conduct, not general conclusory charges unsupported by specific factual allegations. By notice, we refer to an awareness of sufficient facts to identify a particular cause of action, be it tort, a constitutional violation, or a claim of fraud, which must be pled with specificity. We do not mean the kind of notice based on hints, suspicions, hunches, hopes, or rumors that requires a plaintiff to make inquiries in the exercise of due diligence, but not to file suit. When a plaintiff receives information sufficient to put him on inquiry notice, the statute of limitations will begin to run if the plaintiff does not reasonably exercise due diligence in conducting the inquiry. In other words, he is held toward a constitutional violation or claim. Did you see it? Let's try again. Are you watching closely? Come now in closer. Remember, the more you think you see, the easier it will be to fool you. A reasonable inference of suspicion, what the courts often describe as inquiry notice, arises where the circumstances are such as to suggest to an ordinary person of intelligence the probability that he has been defrauded. And as here a duty of inquiry arises, and if he omits that inquiry, when it would have developed the truth and shuts his eyes to the facts which call for investigation, knowledge of the fraud will be imputed against him, the plaintiff. A person cannot claim ignorance when facts call for investigation, because in such a case, the person has a duty of inquiry. Wherever inquiry is a duty, the party bound to make it is affected with the knowledge of all which he would have discovered had he performed that duty at the time, and means of knowledge with the duty of using them are in equity, equivalent to knowledge itself. However, to be actionable, a defendant must show something closer to actual notice than the merest inquiry notice that would be sufficient to set the statute of limitations running in a situation untainted by fraudulent concealment. When charged with fraud, a defendant will likely prefer to litigate what that plaintiff should have known at the time, as well as what the plaintiff did know, regardless of the evidentiary difficulties posed by the counterfactual inquiry. And at least in the nation's capital, courts have said that it is not clear why the presence of fraud would make the hypothetical inquiry significantly more difficult than it is in other cases to which the discovery rule applies. And consequently, in those instances, we reject the "it's too hard" rationale as well. Did you see it? Let's try again. Are you watching? Coming closer. Closer. Remember that the more you think you see, the easier it will be to fool you. And so when a defendant, perhaps like Dr. Morans, comes and commits an unlawful act, a statute of limitations barring further actions by plaintiffs, perhaps like yourself, from being brought to court, will not begin to accrue at that point, not when someone may have been prompted to sufficient curiosity to commence a reasonably calculated course of investigation and further inquiry, but rather at that quickening moment of ripeness when the plaintiff, perhaps again yourself, should have heard 3 or 4 short, shrill whistles, one right after the other, just as all knew or should have known that the blasts are not made without reason. One well-established defense to a claim of fraudulent concealment is that the plaintiff knew, or by exercise of due diligence could have or should have known, that he may have had a cause of action. Knowledge means an awareness or understanding of a fact or circumstance, while imputed knowledge is defined as knowledge attributed by law to a given person, especially because of the person's legal responsibilities for another's conduct, the principal imputed knowledge of its agent's dealings. However, constructive knowledge is defined as knowledge that one using reasonable care or diligence should have, and therefore that is attributed by law to a given person. And under these very specific definitions, imputed knowledge, that is knowledge attributed by law, is the broader term, and constructive knowledge is a specific type of imputed knowledge limited to that which a person would have discovered through exercise of reasonable care or due diligence. Any litigant, be they plaintiff or defendant, is chargeable with such knowledge as he might have obtained upon inquiry, provided the facts already known by him were such as to put upon a man of ordinary intelligence the duty of inquiry.
And unfortunately, he didn't make it. And so now, the war is over. I got out of Hotel Saigon. I made my way to your house. And now, son, I'm giving that war watch to you.
We did all we could do. He just didn't make it. This message was approved by Major Mike Webb. Honest. Honest.